Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the Banter Broadcast, where we sit around and talk about movies, TV shows, and what have you. I'm Patricia.
I'm
I'm
Andrew.
Ian. Oh, he's Andrew.
He's Ian.
I'm Malia.
There we go.
And yes, there we go. And so today, we're back again for the third time talking about something Avatar related, not to be confused with the James Cameron property. But anyway, so today we're going to be discussing about the 2012 animated series, The Legend of Korra, which is the sequel series to Avatar: The Last Airbender, in honor of its release on Netflix.
Yes.
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 I love this show so much.
We know, Malia. We know.
We know you love the show.
Yeah, but now we can talk more about this show. And that doesn't involve with, hey, the creators are leaving the Netflix series because they didn't agree. Yeah, go listen to the last podcast that we did about it. It's anyway, but no, we're here to talk about Korra. And I just looked through like the top 10s of Netflix, and I think it's there with number 2 currently. So let's just see how long that stays in the top 10. So yeah, maybe. I mean, that should be interesting. So yeah, so right before we discuss about this, so I mean, we did all talk about how we were all familiar with Avatar: The Last Airbender. So I'm sure that the moment that Korra arrived, you were really excited about what the show was going to offer.
I talked about it last week, but I don't know if it was part of the one that we recorded. But I found out about Legend of Korra on accident. It was complete, like, out of nowhere. I went on my computer in like the 7th or 8th grade to go play some little flash games because I was bored, and I went to nick.com and I saw Legend of Korra. And I'm like, what is this? This looks like a new show. I've never heard of it because I don't know. I guess I just wasn't watching Nickelodeon at the time, but I went, and it was like when they still had like the free episodes up online.
Yeah, I remember.
And I went to episode 1. And they go through the whole earth, water, fire, air thing. And I'm like, wait a second. This looks like Avatar. And it was Avatar. And I watched whatever episodes they had available, and I kept watching. And I love the show. I think the show's great.
Okay.
So,
for me, I knew about the show, but I didn't get into the show when it first came out. And then I tried watching it. And at first, I'm not going to hold you. I was like, I can't get into it right now. And I realized it's because I want it to be like Avatar, which it's not. And so I waited it out, and I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to watch it. And I got out I had to get out my own really mindset of, this is not, it's not going to be Avatar, yada, yada, yada. I mean, I had to get that mindset, my bad, not get out of it. And when I finally got out of that mindset, it was an A1 show. It still is, like I said in the last podcast. Again, this is my opinion. If this gets big, it's my opinion. But Legend of Korra is better than Avatar.
fighting words from Malia Colbert, everybody.
Yes, indeed. So what about you, Ian?
I'll be honest with you guys. I think the show is freaking terrible. No, I'm just joking. The show is great.
I'm about to have to remove you.
No, I gotta spice it up a little bit, but no, the show is great. I remember when I first saw the trailer for it, I was like, "Wait, what? They're continuing the story?" And I saw that it was a different Avatar. I was like, "Oh, all right, cool." And then I'm seeing like scenes of Republic City and all this. I'm like, "Wow, this is definitely not the Last Airbender." And when the show first came on, I was really impressed by it. The animation was crisp. The choreography was still on point. Just seeing Tenzin and, like Katara and all that it just felt like a great reunion for me. And as far as the series as a whole, I am not a part of that group of people who think the show is not good or that it quote unquote sucks. It does not suck at all. I think it's a very it's a different show set in the world of Avatar, and I very much enjoy it, and I will defend the show for as long as I'm breathing. So
yeah.
Same.
So yeah, as for me, I mean, I remember when I first heard about the show as well. I think I may have saw it in like a newspaper article or something online when it comes to like, oh, you know, this show is going to be coming out. And I saw the first picture of it. The first picture of, you have somebody from the Water Tribe and she's on a polar bear dog and she's looking at Republic City. Or she's standing and looking at Republic City. And that's the first picture that you see of Korra. And I remember seeing this like, oh, wow, this looks amazing. It's like, you know, you go from Avatar, which, you know, is like this ancient Asian civilization. And now you go into like the big city. And it got me really excited. And then when I read more into it, it's like, you know, it's like 1920s New York mixed with samurai style media and all that kind of stuff. So I got more into it. And then I remember that 2012 was kind of like an interesting year because if you remember from a few years prior, that this is when animation was like not doing very well. Like there was barely any stuff going on for any of the networks. Like, you know, Cartoon Network, you know, if you guys remember that they had the whole, you know, we think cartoons are dead, so let's post up live action shows like Destroy, Build, Destroy. Time. Yeah, it was awful. Destroy, Build, Destroy.
Am I the only one that doesn't remember that?
First of all, Destroy, Build, Destroy was elite. Destroy, Build, Destroy was an elite show.
I didn't watch it.
But it, like that was when they had like Level Up, which was mid. There was that one show, the sketch show. I don't remember what it was called, but it was bad. The only live action show that I can truly defend from Cartoon Network was Destroy, Build, Destroy. I watched that show so much.
I don't remember these shows.
Basically,
basically. So I think I need to give a bit of context. So you see, around 2007, 2008, this was during a time in which when it was kind of like toward the beginning of the end of the golden era. You know, a lot of people were basically saying, yeah, a lot of the shows that we're doing, you know, they're starting to end their run. You know, people were going in a completely different direction. So we're like, yeah, I think that cartoons, you know, nobody cares about them anymore. So, you know, this is when we had the live action shows. This is when we had, you know, all that kind of stuff going on for Cartoon Network. And then, of course, 2010 came along in which Adventure Time pretty much changed everything. Like, if you want to talk about a cartoon that truly defined 2010 and all the influences that came out of it, it's Adventure Time.
True. Yeah,
that's very true.
Like, you know, and then, you know, obviously with Disney Channel, for example, Disney Channel was heavily relying on their live action shows. Kim Possible was ending, Proud Family was ending. So, you know, they were relying on like Hannah Montana and, you know, Austin and Ally and all those kind of shows.
That was kind of trash.
Yeah, it was not that good. Yeah. I remember more music than I care to admit, but I was
really for you to say that. That's saying something.
Disney Channel music has its own section in my brain.
Right.
Like from all these different shows.
You mean like well, you mean like Ally and AJ or the Cheetah Girls or something?
Yeah, so like literally in like from 2010 to like 14, I watched Disney Channel all the time. And I would watch it every now and then as a kid, but like 2010 through 14 when I was in middle school, early high school, I watched it all the time. Okay. So music from Disney Channel from the 90s to like 2013, those songs from those shows and movies live in my head rent free. Okay. I can't, like, for the most part, I can pull up any song and just like know all the words and everything. It's a problem. Even if the shows weren't good, like Austin and Ally, I know a lot of music from that just because it was on.
Sure.
It's one of those things that like I watched but I wasn't necessarily a fan of.
I understand. Yeah. You just watched it because it was on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, but at least, you know, they had some, you know, decent stuff on Disney. I mean, Phineas and Ferb was still running. And then a few years. Yeah. And then a few years later, we would get stuff like Gravity Falls, Star vs. the Forces of Evil.
Star vs. Forces of Evil? Great show.
Yeah.
I have not watched any one of those crap shows. I'm sorry. I'm old school. You guys know me. I grew up with the era when Boomerang was it, and then Toonami.
I love Boomerang. Toonami's still on.
Well,
it is.
I understand, yeah.
Yeah, you know, so it's just like for me, seeing this shift. I'm like, what the crap is going on? Like,
yeah, I understand. I mean, like,
doing?
you have to understand with Toonami, they're going through like we're essentially going through like the second or third generation of Toonami. You know, I mean, we're not going to see, you know, like, you know, Yu Yu Hakusho or Inuyasha.
Right, exactly. Or like Outlaw Star. Now, granted, I will say they have bounced back nicely.
They have. Assassination Classroom is going to be airing.
Oh.
I'm surprised they put Food Wars on Toonami.
Food Wars is amazing.
Food Wars is amazing, but that is borderline porn.
It is.
I would know, but I'll take your word for it.
I'm gonna take Malia's word for that.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it.
It's essentially Food Network on steroids.
Yeah, because all
Food
I've seen
Network
about
with naked people.
Oh, because all I've seen for Food Wars is actual food. So I don't know about
As soon as somebody eats a food that's really good, clothes vanish. I want you to understand that. It's porn. Food, literally, they took food porn and made it food porn.
I have so many questions about anime.
Yeah,
anyway, but let's
get back on.
Okay, so yeah, basically, even though that, you know, animation was going through its dark ages, I mean, at least Cartoon Network and Disney had something. Nickelodeon, not really. Like, man, if there was any points in which, like, you know, that time of a decade where they struggled, the 2010s decade, Nickelodeon suffered the most. Like, they barely had anything good. And the thing that they did have good, then it didn't last for very long because Nickelodeon usually screws it up. So
Nickelodeon messed up the end of so many of their shows.
I'm really trying to think what shows were on during this time.
The only one that they had that was running strong was SpongeBob.
Well, okay, so let's talk about the late 2000s. So in the late 2000s, you had Tough Puppy, you have Tough Puppy, you had El Tigre, The Adventures of Manny Rivera.
I remember that.
Iconic.
Back at the Barnyard, The Penguins of Madagascar.
Yeah. Oh, you're right.
Really,
and those shows.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were after like their 6th cancellation.
Yeah, which is. And see, I think I get what Nickelodeon was trying to do. Like, okay, let's try to, transition, to these animated shows based on these animated movies.
And this was around the time in which Seema Saragami was the president of Nickelodeon, aka the worst president ever who ever front this. Like, ouch.
I definitely agree because.
Yeah, so.
It was a dark time.
Yeah, it was very dark times. I mean, in the 2010s decade, Nickelodeon, let's see, the shows that they had were like Fanboy and Chum Chum. That was the show that Nickelodeon picked over Adventure Time. I am not joking.
Yep.
They chose that over Adventure Time.
They fumbled the bag.
They fumbled the bag completely.
They fumbled the bag.
Fanboy and Chum Chum was trash.
That was garbage.
Still trash.
Yo, you know what that reminds me of? When Blockbuster didn't want to buy Netflix and they laughed at Netflix. Okay, you guys, which hurts my heart, but it's like, dang, that's what kind of reminds me.
Y'all just really messing up your bags.
Yeah, we're talking about those. Yeah, exactly. We're talking about that kind of. Yeah, we're talking about that level of fail.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's unfortunate.
Yes, and then we had Robot and Monster. Then we had
Robot and Monster.
I don't even remember that one.
It wasn't that good.
Yeah, it's about a show about a robot and a monster, and they go through wacky adventures, and they're obsessed over bacon.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that one.
That's dumb.
It lasted for less than 2 seasons. It didn't really catch on. And then there was Sanjay and Craig that also didn't.
Was that the one with the snake?
Yep,
yes.
That was the one
it
with the snake.
was.
Yeah.
My little cousin watched it a lot. I was like, "What is this?" And I turned it off.
Yeah. Anyway, and then there was Breadwinners.
What is Breadwinners?
That show.
That show was terrible. With these shows?
Okay,
I don't know.
No, because I don't even know how. Oh, because my little brother and my cousins, they would still watch SpongeBob faithfully. So I would hear like the TV on, and then I'd see these previews for these shows. I'm like, let me try these shows out. Terrible.
Yeah, basically, Breadwinners is.
I know.
Yeah, Breadwinners is essentially. Yeah, Breadwinners is essentially about 2 ducks, and the whole point is that they deliver bread. There's a lot of video game and pop culture and butt jokes in there, so yeah.
It has a rating on IMDb of 2.4 out of 10. Yeah. So clearly, it was not doing well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. When this show came on, I turned it off.
Yeah,
I don't care who was watching the TV. I said Netflix, Hulu, it. I don't care. TV's going off.
Yeah.
Show is no.
Yeah, the show's garbage.
No,
and then
hot stinking garbage.
Yeah, and then there was like Pig Go Banana Cricket, and it's not very good either.
Nickelodeon, in short, they were just not doing well.
They weren't.
Is what I'm gathering.
Pretty much SpongeBob and, pretty much like the last bit of Dan Schneider shows like Henry Danger, Sam and Cat, and, all those shows, those were the only ones that were like holding them together. And so now that we got into that context, in the same year that the 2012 Ninja Turtles came out, Korra came out. Mm-hmm. And Korra had a ton more hype because everybody was like really excited about it. It's like, hey, Avatar The Last Airbender was like this nearly flawless masterpiece. I mean, a lot of people were excited about Korra and see how that was going to turn out. It was a disaster from day one because, as you guys know, and we discussed about this twice on the show, Nickelodeon didn't want to pick it up because it had a female protagonist.
I'm upset on Netflix that for Avatar Airbender it says, Avatar, like whatever. But for Legend of Korra, it says a woman Avatar, lady Avatar. It said Avatar regardless, just like Aang was the Avatar. Korra is the Avatar. She's not a woman Avatar. She's not a lady Avatar. Like, I don't like how they put that in front of it.
Because I think it's because everyone was so used to male avatars when you think about it, because even in those little flashbacks, we only see, like in the original Avatar, we only see Kyoshi like twice. We see Yang Chen literally once, and Roku appeared like 5 times a season.
Yeah.
So everyone just had in their mind a male avatar.
That's because Roku was his master guide. Not master guide.
But the thing is, though, not only that, surprisingly, and I guess we'll talk about this as the podcast goes on, but this is a lot of people's introduction to Legend of Korra, believe it or not.
It is.
So
that's true.
And they kind of word it like that so people wouldn't be confused. Like, wait a minute, so Aang's not the Avatar anymore. Who was this? I get it. They definitely should have said, no, this is just the next Avatar. Who happened?
Yeah, they shouldn't have added the whole female thing. But
yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I know why it's called The Legend of Korra, because in Europe, the show is not called Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's called Avatar: The Legend of Aang. So I take it that they wanted to go more international, where yeah, it's true.
Interesting.
I thought it was because Avatar, the blue one, the movie, came out and they had a little bit of copyright issues or something like that.
No, that was why they changed the movie from The Last Airbender into Avatar because of the James Cameron movie.
Oh, because they did release it like the same time.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, so, as for Korra, I mean, I take it that, to ease more into an international audience, and since it wasn't, like, The Last Airbender anymore, because, Korra's a waterbender now, so I take it that, hey, to ease to our international audience and to, like, make it a lot more easier for people to know, okay, this is what the show's about, so that's why they called it, Avatar: The Legend of Korra, so, or just Legend of Korra, but... Yeah, so basically, then eventually Nickelodeon was like, okay, we'll allow you to do this show. And so they wanted to do just 12 episodes. They were only given like one season and they were going to do 12 episodes. And Mike and Brian basically, wrote the story out. They had no fillers because they wanted to have a tight, concise story because they thought that they would never have this opportunity again. And, they, at the same time, they were working on, as we mentioned in the last podcast, the Search movie, the TV movie that was going to be about, Aang and the gang looking for Zuko's mom. So I guess before we discuss about that, let's go into season 1. So it's called, Book Air, and it focuses on, the introduction of Korra, and it takes place 70 years after the events of Avatar: The Last Airbender. So we see that Korra is the new Avatar. She is pretty much a prodigy. She already learned, the elements of fire, water, and earth at the age of like 4 or 5. And when she turned 17 is when she like fully mastered all 3 of them. And then eventually she knows that she has to learn how to use air. And so eventually she goes over to Republic City eventually, and she lives with Tenzin and his family. Tenzin is the youngest son of Avatar, who is the only airbender in the family. They have 3 kids. They have Jinora, Iki, and Milo. And
Milo is that dude.
Yes.
Milo is hilarious.
Milo is that dude.
Facts.
And then along the way, Korra learns more about pro bending when she listens to it on the radio, and then she meets up with her two companions named Mako and Bolin, and who are brothers. One of them is a firebender, the other one's an earthbender. She participates in that, and then along the way, there's this talk about the Equalists, about a group of non-benders who want to have the opportunity to live as peacefully as benders, and it's led by a man named Aman, who is pretty dark if you know more about his backstory. And basically, you know, it goes into that part of the story. And I have to say that for season 1, and knowing that this was supposed to be like the only thing Korra was ever going to get, it's actually pretty well done.
Yes, it
yes,
is.
very.
It is.
What I like about season 1 is the fact that the reason why the creators named it Air and had Korra master Air is because for the original, there was no book Air.
There wasn't.
Exactly. Right.
And there's also a fan theory out there. I don't remember who started it, so if this does get popular, sorry I didn't, say your name. But the reason that the other reason why it's book Air is because it's to show that this isn't Aang's story anymore.
Right.
That the only thing that Korra has to master is Air, which is something that Aang has already, mastered way back when.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's just to really show that this is not the same show. And it's the same reason as to why in the intro it ends off with water instead of air again, to show that it's not the same show.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, book 1 was, I believe, well done. The story was complex. The characters were complex for the most part. And the world that you were in, while it felt familiar, it felt new. If I could compare it to another franchise, all right, fine. The prequels, you still knew it was Star Wars, but it felt new. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with Korra. It felt new, but you still knew that this was the world of Avatar, like the world of the bending nations and all that. And just to see Republic City and kind of see when you go back to the comics, like its foundation to where it eventually goes, like, how much it's developed. It's really cool to see. And I think even from the comics, even though some of them came out after the show started, to see how Republic City starts and to where we see it in Legend of Korra, I think was really cool. So I think it did a fantastic job in more world building and more character development.
Yeah, so in the comics, it does go more in depth about Aang and Zuko creating Republic City so that there will be a huge world of nations that can be able to come together in harmony, and that non-benders and benders can be able to live in peace and prosperity, and that, if you read in the comics, it didn't work out very well at first. I mean, it was like it was pretty much a disaster.
It was, yeah.
But over time, generations after Aang and Zuko left, their responsibilities, and then, Aang passed away, and then Korra would come along. There was still a lot of conflict that was going on, and it was up to like the newer generation, in Korra's case, to kind of set things right that the previous generation wasn't able to do.
Right.
And I think it's kind of interesting, you have basically the story of Korra kind of fascinates me. It's like, we were mentioning this in the last podcast about how, Korra from the very beginning was trained to be the Avatar. I mean, it wasn't like a similar case in Aang in which like, Aang is a kid and he's training to be the Avatar. Well, Korra is already trained to be the Avatar, but that's all she knows. She thinks that in order for her to be successful in everything, she has to follow in the traditions of the Avatar. A very similar thing to Tenzin, because he's the only airbender and his family consists of airbenders. So he has this pressure that he needs to be the one to build up the next generation of benders. And so that's why he has all of this, stress of, I need to be the one to continue my father's legacy, when in reality, he should have been focusing on being his own person.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of good, small life lessons, gems throughout the show. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, and Aman, I think that out of all the villains in the series, Aman's probably my favorite. Zahir is a close second.
Yeah, I would say Zahir is my first.
Favorite.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Zahir.
Zahir was that dude.
Yeah.
He here said, "I'm gonna take the lungs out your breath. I mean, the breath out your lungs. I'm gonna kill you.
Okay,
I'm gonna kill you with your literal air."
If Zahir had a more detailed backstory, then I would have considered him my favorite.
Yeah,
That's true. I see that.
I can respect that, but I think his ideals, he's kind of like one of those villains where you're like, dang, he's a villain, but I kind of feel what he's saying, and I felt that way with Amon as well, but with Amon's like reveals, like, oh well, all right, bro, like you have some counseling to go through. Not saying that's bad, it's like you have some counseling to go through. With Zahir, it's something different. And to your point, Malia, I was thinking like, yo, if Aang really got serious, he would be unbeatable. All you gotta do is just take the air out of somebody's lungs. Like, what Fire Lord? Give me your air. That's all you gotta do.
Bro, no. Everybody wants to be a waterbender to blood blend to blood bend. No. I can fly if I master air. I can take the air out your lungs.
That's what I'm saying. People see about airbending so bad. Like, you guys don't understand.
And also think about like.
Oh, go ahead.
Think about how in the show you can see the air. If airbending existed in real life, you can't see it. You can't dodge it. You can't block it. Exactly. No one knows where the air is coming from. So honestly, airbending is probably the most elite. Do I still want to be a waterbender? Yes.
I think that airbending wasn't really taken as remotely seriously in Avatar because only Aang could use it. And Aang, and because Aang was a pacifist, he wouldn't do anything like take the air out of a person's lungs.
Right. Aang was he was defensive when he thought using airbending.
Yeah, while Zahir was offensive.
Zahir was ready to kill somebody.
I'm about to like really mess with y'all. Like I'm about to F y'all up pretty much. But I do get your point with Amon though. Like he is a very strong villain. And even with his reveal, I was like, oh, that makes sense. I was like, ooh.
Yeah. I love that Aang was a pacifist. Like, he stayed to his roots. I love that, right? Mm-hmm. But if you really think about it, because Aang was a pacifist and did not murk, I can't remember his name right now.
Amon.
No, the other dude.
His father.
Oh, their father.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name either.
Amon would not have existed, my God, like that. Like, Korra would not have to deal with that. Like
are you talking about Yakon?
Yeah,
Yakon.
Korra, like, because Aang was a pacifist, that made Korra have to deal with some stuff that she would not have to deal with if Aang just went around murking people. But Aang like he stayed to his roots, that he was like, I'm a pacifist. I applaud him for that. But at the same time, your non-violent route still caused more violence in the end.
She's correct. Something. She is correct.
Yeah. That is actually a whole deep conversation. Oh man, if we had the time, I would love to go into that because you do have some valid points, Malia. And then we could actually apply that to some real life situations. Yeah. But I think we'll just stick to TV for now.
Yeah, Aang, I think he took the whole airbending, air nomad pacifist thing. He took that too far because, like, it's just there are times where, like, in the show where there were people who you had to take out. You had to murk some people. Even like people like Zuko was ready for his father to be dead. When you think about it, like he was just sitting there like, he was going to kill Ozai, but he was like, nah, the Avatar's got to do that. That's not my job, So he took it too far for me.
In hindsight, though, if Aang did kill Ozai, then Ozai would have gone out like, oh, okay, cool, he died by the hands of the Avatar. That's okay. That's what
that would have made him a martyr. Yeah.
That would have been. That's
but because he was energy bend and lost his bending, he became a joke. Oh, you got your bending taken by a 12-year-old? Oh, right. you a little weak. Oh, you're not all that strong. Oh,
I can agree with that. I could go with that.
Yeah, I can see from that point of view, and it's kind of a similar situation, where I'm sure that Aang was probably thinking the same thing when he took away Yakon's bending as well. It's like, yeah, I could probably have this guy arrested or maybe like, banished or killed off or something. But, he knew that on that moment, he had to do something really quickly. Otherwise, he was going to be killed off by blood bending. That's when he was like, I'm going to take away your bending and you're never going to be a threat to anybody again. Without him knowing about, okay, this is what's going to happen with Yakon, where eventually, he was released from prison. He was able to get plastic surgery to change his appearance. He went over to the Water Tribe and he was able to find a wife, and he got 2 kids, Turlock and
Turlock, yeah.
Yeah, Turlock, and then eventually Amon. And then, he was like, he would train them to do blood bending. And then, something that was deemed impossible, especially in the original series, was that, Yakon and they could blood bend without a full moon. Yeah.
They could just blood bend.
Like I said earlier, if Aang went around murking people, season 1 would not have been a thing. Then again, season 1 needed to be
yeah, it was like for the second story, it had to happen. I mean, here's the thing. What I love about Korra, she doesn't have the pacifist mindset
something
or
about
energy.
Female avatars. Female avatars are ready to murk anybody at a moment's notice.
Yeah, I mean, but their reasoning is more than just. You know what I mean? So it's like, but throughout her journey in the show, she realized, okay, I have to do more than that. And I love how the creators just deconstruct Korra throughout the series. And we get to see more and more and more of what it takes to be an avatar. We only got to see so much with Aang because it was a particular situation. Now you have multiple people that you have to deal with. And you have the physical world blending with the spirit world. How would have Aang handled that in his time?
He wouldn't have been able to. In my whole honest opinion, Aang could not have dealt with what Korra have dealt with. He was too much of a pacifist.
I don't think the problem is Korra, and I don't think the issue with the villains is that because Aang was a pacifist, he wouldn't have been able to do it. At the end of the day, Korra did not kill anybody, if I remember correctly. Now, her teammates killed some people, which is hilarious. Her teammates killed people, but she never did. Right? Because, in season 3, with Zahir and his group, everybody got murked. Yeah. Except for Zahir.
But they kind of
Zahir was the only one. Oh, no, they did, for sure. But the thing with Aang never had to go through that type of, almost torture. Because for Aang, it was just a straight shot, let's beat the Fire Lord. And they did that, and they won. Korra was like, equalist. All right, we're done with that. Oh, wait, who's the season 2 villain? My uncle.
Spiritual.
My uncle is releasing the spirits into the human world. That's all taken care of. Season 3, a murderer is after me with his friends, and they are all master benders who have their own subsets of bending that they have mastered and know. In season 4, a giant titanium robot.
Yeah.
Aang would not have been able to take on any of that. She wouldn't have been. Aang would not have been able to do that. He never experienced that type of back-to-back villainy before.
Yeah, and it's not to say that, Aang hasn't had to deal with just the Fire Lord. I mean, he had Azula. He had June, the bounty hunter. There was Combustion Man. There was Azula and her group. So and of course there was Zuko constantly chasing after them. So
but they were all part of the same thing, though.
Yeah, they were.
I mean, but to be fair though, the Dai League I think was an interesting aspect to Aang's journey.
That's
because with Korra dealing with what she dealt with, Aang had to deal with espionage. Aang had to deal with conspiracy. And that is one aspect. They did bring it into Korra somewhat, but I kind of wish they went kind of back to that realm with Korra just to see how she dealt with that.
Yeah, like conspiracy and all that kind of stuff. But in, Korra's case, it was a lot with fascism and civil war and, different ideals and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's actually interesting. It's definitely a lot more political in that kind of sense, in which, like, with season 1, you have this guy who comes along and he's bringing up ideals that a lot of people have thought of for the longest time. It's like, we're non-benders. We don't have that kind of power compared to regular benders. Bending has pretty much like ruined everything. It was the start of every single war that's ever happened.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like, hey, where's our justification? Where's, our sense of justice? Why can't we be treated the same way? So, then you have somebody who's like really extreme saying, we're going to fight for this. In exchange for that, we're going to have this going on. Well, Amon is like rallying up a bunch of non-benders and teaching them about chi blocking and giving them, powers involving with like, hey, wear this glove, or have these rods that you can be able to use electricity to fight off regular benders. And then, hey, you're good to go. With Unalak's case, in which, like, hey, I'm going to open up the portals because your tribe has been desensitized by the spirits for the longest time, and hey, we're going to end up having a civil war with the North versus the South.
For the Southern Water Tribe to be like to Korra, this is your home, protect us, and then for the Northern Water Tribe to be like, you're the Avatar, fix this. I was like, Dad, let the girl, like, she wants to be for her home, but she also is fighting with her Avatar duties.
Yeah.
My guy, just let her chill out. Chill out.
Chill out.
Calm down off of that.
Well, if you remember, as the Avatar, she has to be neutral. She can't choose a particular side, because as the Avatar, you have to be the bridge between all the nations. If you go one-sided, then all the other ones are going to think that you're a traitor. Like, you're going to lean more towards like one side over the other. I mean, with season 1, the non-benders were about to be arrested by, the police force because, they turned off the electricity, and they were like questioned saying, oh, you're part of the Equalists, and, we're going to take you into jail, and we're going to get you questions and all that kind of stuff. And then the non-benders were talking to Korra saying, please, Korra, you're our Avatar too. Please help us, prevent us from being arrested by the police.
Yeah,
so,
season 1 is what happens now in today's world.
Yeah, and see, and that's the funny thing. Good storytellers know how to bring what's going on in the world today and throughout history into the storytelling. And Patricia, it's funny because when you said that Korra was more political, like, it's like a light bulb came on. I'm like, yo, this kind of feels like what George Lucas dealt with Star Wars, because the originals, it's about a boy, a princess, and a scoundrel versus the Empire. With a Last Airbender, it's about a boy and his friends versus this evil empire known as like the Fire Nation. Yeah. And then with Korra, it's too political. She does this. She acts this way. And then with the prequels, Anakin acts this way. He's this. It's too political. And it's like, no, these stories are more complex than just good versus evil. It's okay. What makes good versus evil? Now, how do you handle that balance between good versus evil? What about the gray areas? Like, those
and arguably adding politics made it more, like, it made it more interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because
that's my whole point.
With Star Wars, I can say the prequels, when it came to the political stuff, they just kind of touched on it. But then you have the Clone Wars, where just like it's a major part of the series, and it adds so much to canon. It adds so much to the lore. It adds so much to the characters. Because in the movies, let's say, for instance, Padme, you don't see Padme in the movies really, like, doing political duties like that. Like, she might have a scene where she's talking to the Senate, or she's acting as the queen, or blah, blah, blah. But in the show, she is that girl. Like, she is going up against politicians way above her pay grade, like, fighting.
Corrupt politicians at that.
Right.
Bro, for the president to kick her out, to be like, yeah, no, you're not welcome here anymore.
Yes. And what do you do when you're the Avatar? And it's like, yo, the president just kicked me out. Like, what?
Because she had to deal with, like, when she's dealing with the world essentially outgrowing the Avatar.
That's literally what Legend of Korra is about.
Right, because you have all these people, they're like, we, like, even, like, from the jump, season 1, where you have the Equalists who are taking out benders one by one, taking their bending away, like chi blocking the Avatar, giving the Avatar a run for her money. From the
taking
very
away her
jump.
bending.
Right. From the jump, we have her just like the world just being like, we have outgrown the need for your existence.
Yes.
So please leave us alone. We can do this ourselves.
End of season 1. People are always debating about this. They're like, Korra wasn't about to commit suicide. Can I say that?
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead, do it.
Korra is not about to commit suicide. She's just going to a cliff to think about her life. I'm sorry, but her
she was contemplating.
just got taken.
She was contemplating that.
She was like, the next Avatar would be better than me. The next Avatar would be more fit for the role than I am right now. I'm about to end my life, which is why Aang said what he said. What was the quote?
When we're at our lowest point, that's when we find the light.
Yes.
Or like,
yes. Hallelujah. Sorry.
Like, I'm sorry. If I'm that sad and I'm contemplating my life, I'm not gonna go to a cliff. I mean, if I'm that sad, I'm not gonna go to a cliff to contemplate my life. I'm going to a cliff to go jump off of it.
Yeah, and see, that is the beauty of Legend of Korra. It's when you deconstruct the Avatar, not just Korra, but the Avatar. You take away the purpose and the meaning of the Avatar. What's left? When you depend on your bending and your role to define you so much, who are you really? And the show really deconstruct that throughout all 4 seasons, throughout all aspects of the Avatar. And that's why I love the show so much. It's a more complex story for a more complex character.
Kudos to Mike and Brian for taking that kind of risk, because they could have done Avatar 2.0 all over again. It's like, it would have been the same thing over and over again. Like,
I'm so happy they didn't.
Yeah, like, I think that probably, I remember when the show first came out, a lot of people were disappointed with it because, they felt that, Korra was unlikable. I think that was one of the first things I remember listening about.
She's too cocky. I'm like, get the heck out.
She's a polar opposite of Aang. She's gonna be cocky. She's gonna be arrogant.
Exactly.
And she's been training for this her whole life.
She's not Aang. She's not that pacifist monk, which nothing wrong with that. Let me be clear. I actually love Aang as an Avatar, but but it's okay to be different. It's like okay, for example, again with Star Wars, Qui-Gon Jinn, he was not the prototypical Jedi. That's why he was kind of outcasted by the Jedi Order. He's like, no, forget the will of the Council. I'm doing the will of the Force. He was different. Same thing with Korra. She's like, okay, I'm about to smash this Avatar role. I'm about to kill it. No one's gonna stop me. Oh, but there are actually people that can stop you. What are you gonna do about it?
Everybody's stopping you.
Right.
What
do you say, Malia? Okay, Malia.
Sorry. I have a lot. This is truly one of my favorites. I have a lot of thoughts. I don't want to cut you guys off. So basically, 2 points. The first point is Korra. You guys all know that gifted syndrome, like the gifted kid syndrome.
I know exactly what you're referring to right now.
Go ahead, Malia.
I know exactly what you're referring to right now.
Preach, Malia, preach.
That is Korra. If you do not know the gifted kid syndrome, it is literally, as a kid, I did great. As a kid, I didn't have to study. Everything came naturally to me. I was super smart, yada, yada, yada. And then I got to high school and I didn't know how to study. I didn't know what to do to prepare for anything. I didn't know how to do my homework. What came easy to me is now hard, and now life is hard. I don't know what to do. I'm struggling in school, yada, yada, yada. Take that and put that in Korra, and that is horror.
Exactly.
She was a gifted kid. She was the Avatar. She realized that at a very, very young age. I want to say, what, 4 or 5?
Yeah, 4 or 5.
Like don't Avatars realize that they are the Avatar and what's like age 7 or something like that?
Young. But she was bending earth, water, and fire at like 4 years old. And see, Malia.
And so she grew up with that mindset. And then when things didn't come easy to her, aka spirituality, aka airbending, like everything
Go
else
ahead,
like
Malia.
that. It knocked her down, and people were like, "Oh, she gives up easily. She doesn't give up easily. It just doesn't come easily to her, and she gets frustrated, and so she doesn't want to try because it's like, if I'm not that good, then what am I?"
I think that's one of the reasons I really like Korra as an Avatar, because I was one of those gifted kids who, like, literally the principal of my school when I was maybe 7 or 8, maybe younger. I was sitting in my classroom minding my business, and my teacher, the principal came into the class, pulled me out, and I thought I was in trouble. She brought me to her office and literally had me do a bunch of like stuff. Like I had to do math problems. I had to read these books that were designed for like 10th graders. And I'm doing it in front of all these people. Like I was the gifted kid. And then when like around middle school hit, it was like, okay, wait, I actually have to do stuff. And I like, you know, like as a kid, I was not burned out, but you know, I was frustrated because I can't do this as easily, blah, 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 blah. So that's why I relate to Korra, because that gifted kid syndrome, that is real. And it is one of the most painful things you ever have to experience.
Yes.
Like being told as a child, like, oh, you're going to do great things. You're going to do this, that, and the other. And then growing up and not living up to what you thought you can do, what other people said you could do. Yeah, it's the worst. So that's why I get Korra, because Korra, like, everything in her Avatar training from the time she was a child, like, she could barely walk, and she was bending fire, water, and earth.
Yeah, like the very first thing that we saw from Korra was her, you know, when the White Lotus comes on, and, you know, after searching for years of where the next Avatar was after Aang died, you know, they went from, you know, all the parts of the Northern Water Tribe, and they couldn't find it. They couldn't find the Avatar. So finally, you know, they go over to the Southern Water Tribe, and then they're saying, oh, you know, we've heard stories that your child is the Avatar. And then the moment that Korra comes along, she yells out, I'm the Avatar. You got to deal with it.
Yeah. That was great.
Yeah, believe it or not, fun fact, that was the voice of Dee Bradley Baker's daughter, Korra Baker. For those who don't, yeah. So for those who don't know, for those who don't know, Dee Bradley Baker, you know, he does a lot of the animal noises in Avatar. You know, he was Appa and Momo. Yeah, and you know, he did Paku, and he did like all the Sky Bison noises, and in Korra, you know, he was also the voice of Tarlok as well. And
vocalist.
Yeah, he's a very, very talented vocalist.
By the way, he also plays the voice of all the clones in Clone Wars. So shout out to Dee Bradley Baker. Yes,
shout out.
Part 2 to my little rant. So also, if you think about it, people like to compare Korra and Aang. You should not do that. Obviously, 2 different shows. A character you can compare Korra to, who she's more like, is Zuko. If you think about it, yeah, I've been putting a lot of thought into this. The reason I say that is because Zuko likes to run headfirst into issues, show that he's strong, show that he's like, I can handle this. I don't need to think or anything. I'm gonna go headfirst into the battle. I have to prove my strength. I have to prove my worth through my strength, and that is Korra.
I'm sorry, no, because Asami, you're spitting gems. You're spitting gems, because Korra, honestly, I think another thing that she suffered from, she didn't have at certain times the right teacher. As for Zuko, he had Uncle Iroh, who was like the Master Yoda of Avatar everything. You know, whether it's Last Airbender or Korra, when he showed up in the spirit world. By the way, I almost shed a tear when we saw Iroh again. I was like,
bro! When General Iroh spoke, I said, is that Zuko?
No, that's facts. I was like, I recognize that voice. That's something's off here.
I said, oh, yes. I was so hyped. But Korra, and again, look, y'all, I'm sorry, but these parallels between these 2 franchises are just so great. Again, with Star Wars, Anakin didn't have the proper teacher to guide him throughout his years, so he had to go through all these trials. It's the same thing with Korra. Yeah, she had teachers to teach her how to do these bending, but how to be the Avatar, that's something totally different, you know? So, like, with Anakin, how to be the chosen one. Qui-Gon would have been better equipped to teach him as opposed to Obi-Wan. For, like, you know, Korra, Tenzin's worried about, okay, I need to be an air nomad. I need to keep the tradition alive. I'm going to help Korra because, you know, she's essentially my dad, low key, and all that. But, you know, it's not like, okay, eventually he's like, no, I need to teach her how to be the Avatar, not how to be just an air nomad. You know, like, that's what I need to teach her. And she kind of failed to have certain teachers to instill that in her. And it's through those battles with the enemies that she faces is where she learns how to become a better Avatar. That's the irony of it that people don't get. So, Malia, you are spitting gems.
If you guys can't realize, I said this before, but this is honestly one of my favorite shows. Like, I hate rewatching shows within the same year, I'm literally rewatching Korra, and I watched it Christmas break.
Mm-hmm.
No, not even Christmas break. Thanksgiving break.
Patricia, I know you were talking about it, I think, a couple podcasts ago, about your favorite season of Korra. Which
Yes,
one
that's
is your
right.
favorite season?
Okay, so yeah, season 3 is way better. Yeah, I mean, like, it's kind of like you have to understand what the context of each of the seasons were. So season 1, Mike and Brian, they knew that this was going to be their last one. So it's like, okay, let's put in everything we got. Season 2, oof. I mean, nobody likes season 2. Let's be honest.
I like season 2.
I actually like
respect
season
on
2.
season 2.
Yeah,
I like
just,
season 2 because it's a year. I mean, I said season 2. Season 3
that's 3
because it's a year.
Yeah,
Season 2 gave the whole spirit world thing, it was kind of mid, but it did expand it a little more compared to what we got.
But here's the thing,
Last
like,
Airbender.
I can understand what happened because, Nickelodeon saw that Korra was a smash hit, and so they told Mike and Brian, okay, we need a season 2 like now. And they didn't have the time to like flesh out the stories and all that kind of stuff. So the moment that you see the first episode of season 2 taking place 6 months after season 1, it just feels kind of rushed and regressed. I mean, Korra to me in season 2 was unlikable. Like, she was like pushing around her father and Mako, saying like, whose side are you on? Why do you have to do this, Dad? Why do you have to, why didn't you stand up for me, Mako? It's like, I don't know what was going on with that segment. It's like, she went through so much in season 1. She almost lost her bending. She was able to get it back thanks to Aang. And also, when it came to Unalaq, I mean, Unalaq's ideals for the spirit world was actually really interesting, but the conflict kind of felt kind of half-baked. It almost felt like a little bit of a diet season 1 to me. But
I can see that.
I can respect that. Yeah.
Yeah. I can see that.
There are some stories of the second season that just felt a little bit slow and dragged out, that maybe like if they cut off some of those things, it would have flowed a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the things that kind of salvaged season 2 for me were the introductions of Avatar 1.
I knew it. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
That was great.
And then
that was probably the best episode to me.
Yeah, season. Yeah, I would say that if there's anything that season 2 that I can find that I can see, okay, yeah, that's justified, was the introduction of Avatar Wong and the origins of where the avatars came from. Yeah. And I know that a lot of people are still angry about, like, but in Avatar: The Last Airbender, the show introduces that, airbending came from sky bisons and earthbending came from...
the techniques came from sky bison and badger moles and the dragons and the moon, but the bending itself clearly came from the lion turtles.
Right.
It makes the most sense.
Why do people not understand that? That's what I'm like.
I don't know.
How do you guys miss that in translation? That's obvious.
I know.
It's obvious.
It kind of reminds me of like in Pokemon, where everybody was like thinking, oh, Mew is, basically has the DNA of all the Pokemon, and they thought that Mew was like a god or something. But then when Arceus came along, and then Dialga and Palkia came along, and they were like, wait, hold on. So you're trying to tell me that Arceus was the creator of all the Pokemon? Then what happened to Mew? I mean, yes, it's true that, it is a little bit confusing, but if you think about it, Arceus did help, create, let's just say that Arceus created Mew, and Mew was the one that kind of helped populate it because of its massive DNA of all the other Pokemon. And then Dialga and Palkia, they help with space and time. So that's how that came to be. So yeah, I guess it's kind of like that equivalent or something. I don't know.
I think for season 2, I'm just gonna be real quick about this. I think season 2 should have been the last season, because then it would have left the whole open world for the possibilities. Because the way they did season 2, they did want to wrap up the whole Avatar thing. Period. Like, all right, this is it. Like when Korra loses her connection to past avatars, like, no, you're pretty much now the first Avatar again. Like now you kind of forge a path for the avatars to come after you.
Yeah.
And the concept I loved. I just think that should have been the last season. And I think in hindsight, the creators probably think, all right, if we knew what we know now and how things would have played out behind the scenes with Viacom and all that, we probably would have saved the second season for last, because that is actually a great ending for the series. I'm like, dang, I wish they said this for like season 4. That would have been a great ending for the series, because that would have been the ultimate challenge for Korra. Like, okay, now the spirit world and the physical world is combined, and how do I deal with no longer being able to talk to Aang or Roku or Kyoshi or any of the avatars? Like, I'm on my own now.
Yeah.
I am my own, person of like guidance, or who would I seek wisdom from? I could go to Uncle Iroh, but he wasn't an avatar. He's not an avatar. He's wise. So that aspect of season 2 and with Avatar 1, I really enjoyed. But I will say, even though I'd still like it, it was the weakest season to me.
Yeah, it is. Let's be honest.
It was the weakest.
Basically, quick 3 little points.
Go for it.
Go for
All right,
it.
for season 2, I do like the fact that she lost Rava for that split second and lost the connection to the past avatars, because you literally see her become a giant blue spirit without Rava and defeat Vatu. You know how powerful you gotta be by yourself for that?
Yeah.
And then after that, and then after she did get Rava back, literally season 3 and season 4, all that like fire, all that like brute strength that we see, all that avatar strength we see. Remember, Roku said, "Oh, all the things from the past avatars. That's all the strength in the avatar state. That's Korra and Robert by themselves."
Right.
That's true. That's very true.
Strong
Yeah.
you got. Like people are like, "Oh, she's so weak, bro."
Korra was
she's not
flying.
weak.
Heck no.
Korra was literally flying without the whole airbender let go of thing. No, she was zooming through the sky, keeping up with Zahir, tearing off mountaintops to throw at that man. And it was just her and Rava. I'm going to say it. I think that whoever is the next avatar, if they just have to deal with Korra, they'll probably be fine in the avatar state.
Thank you. Korra has so much to teach them. Korra has so much to teach them because of what she's been through, as opposed to Aang. And again, it's not a knock towards Aang. I love Aang, but it's like Korra has been through so much. So have one else to pass down.
Korra has had to deal personally through the run. Like, this is what I think. So, y'all, anyone who's watching this, leave me alone. I wholeheartedly believe that throughout, the run of each show and comics, Korra had to deal with more than Aang ever did.
Yeah.
She had to deal with so much. She had to deal with a world that didn't want an avatar anymore. She had to deal with a world who, even without bending, could take on the avatar and win. Like, there were so many things that were happening throughout her tenure as an avatar that Aang could not even fathom. And even if he was there, he might have just shut down entirely. Because when Aang found out he was an avatar, he left. Like, he panicked and left. If he had to deal with all of this, I really don't know what he would have done. To be completely honest with you.
Point 2. It's just a little fun fact, but the teapot that Iroh carries around with him is the same teapot that Juan put Rava in.
Yes.
It's a little cute fact. All right.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. All right. Point 3. We cannot talk about Korra and not talk about Asami.
Here she go.
We love you, Malia. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I will admit, I believe that Asami is probably the most capable non-bender team avatar in either iteration has ever had.
Ooh, you're gonna piss some people off, Andrew.
Here's the thing.
You're right, but you're gonna piss people off.
Right. Because Sokka was a tactician. Sokka planned everything. Sokka knew what he had to do in order to, what the team had to do to get from wherever they were to wherever they had to be. Sokka was a planner. In terms of that, he is obviously superior. And I'm not saying Asami's my favorite non-bender. Sokka is the best. For me, he's my favorite non-bender. But Asami was the most capable, and she was the best one the team had because she had the money. She was the one funding Team Avatar when you think about it. She was a significantly better fighter than Sokka was. Let's be real here. She had the genius. She came up with their gadgets. She came up with her own, her little hand glove thingamajig.
She basically murked her own dad almost.
Literally, she was
basically murdered.
Basically.
I want.
Like Asami just had so much more to her that made her to me, she is the best non-bender. Is she my favorite? No. Sokka will forever be the best non-bender to me. But Asami she was better equipped to be on the team.
I agree.
I think they contributed an even amount, honestly. But
You should put out a notebook. I feel like she's gonna show us something.
She offered, I don't know. I just think she's better. Also, fun fact, didn't know this till the other day. Asami is voiced by the same actress who played Princess Yue in the live-action movie.
Yep.
Which I will.
Yeah, Seychelle Gabrielle. Yeah.
I will argue that alone is a better redemption arc than Zuko ever was, because.
Okay. I thought you were just talking about Asami, but you're talking about the voice actors. Okay. I was saying, hold on now.
I was gonna be like, whoa.
I was like, whoa, hold on, bro. All right, but I got you.
No,
I was
like,
wait.
Can we talk about gayness now? Can we talk about the biness? Can we talk about?
Please go, Malia. Talk about what you got to talk about.
Okay, so for the viewers, again, if this gets popular, hopefully it does. That don't know, I am gay. I am a lesbian. I like girls. I'm a woman loving woman.
We get it. We get it. Dang.
So basically, for me to see Korra and Asami was amazing. But a lot of people were like, oh, this came out the woodworks. Oh, this was like not planned. If you go, we're so used to seeing heteronormative ways in TV. We weren't, like, unless you are part of the LGBTQ plus community, you won't pick up on certain cues that were being dropped continuously throughout the show.
And I have to give you credit for that, just because I at first, I'll admit, I didn't see it. I was like, this kind of came out of nowhere. And then
I did not see this at all.
Go back and watch it again. And, now that I'm still learning to become a storyteller, I can, like, kind of see what certain storytellers are, like, trying to do with their works. And Malia pointed some things out, and I was like, wow, she was right. This wasn't just...
Yeah, they're just, like, little tiny hints that you were just like, oh.
Right.
And it all starts to click.
Like, for a prime example, when they get stranded into the desert and they come back, Asami does not want to leave Korra's side. It's not because they were trapped together, but because she wants to make sure she's okay. Asami was to the ground, or to the no, she was on the had her hands up in the air, like strapped like that. Korra was treated like a, cannot say that word, I was gonna curse, was treated like a slave. She had a muzzle on her face, muzzle on her face, had her hands tied behind her back, staying up straight. She wasn't offered any type of water or anything, while Asami was over here low-key being treated like not low-key, high-key being treated like a human being, while Korra's over here being treated like a dog.
Yeah.
She wanted to make sure she was okay. They were writing to each other. She was the only person that was writing to Asami throughout that whole 3-year gap. What do you think they talked about? Oh, I want a little cute date. No, it was more like, never mind.
Yeah,
Listen,
you might have to tell her.
This is for an uncensored podcast, Malia.
Yes.
Who said something out of pocket?
Yeah, we know.
We know.
Welcome to the midnight screening of the Banter Broadcast.
With Malia.
Bro. And you really think, and then also, was it season 3 or season 4? I don't remember, when Mako was acting all weird and then they had that little, like, cute girl talk moment. Bro, they were having that all throughout the
series
3-year break.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And then, bro, they went to the spirit world at the end of season 4. What do you think they did in the spirit world?
The comics actually...
The comics made that very clear.
There's a comic that explains that. So...
Yeah,
comics made that very clear.
Yeah, the comics made that really clear. They... and also Mike and Brian even shared like some they shared an official picture of them riding inside of a turtle duck, and they were like hugging each other while fireflies were going around.
I did see that.
And then there was also, they were like walking around in the spirit world, and Korra was showing Asami about like all the different plant life and the creatures and all that kind of stuff. And then, as expected, and this was something that I remember that Seychelle and Janet was reading on the Twitch stream, where they actually did read through the comic.
Nice.
Then
we also Kai was gay. Not Kai. What's your name? Katara's name's daughter.
Oh, that's right, Kaya. Yes, that's very true.
Yeah, I picked up on just by her personality.
I was like, oh, she don't like guys.
Yeah, that's true. Because because if you remember when Korra introduced Asami over to her parents, they were accepting of it, but Kaya was telling Korra, you have to be careful on what you say when you're introducing Asami to people, because, I'm gay, and I had a struggle when I first, fell in love with somebody. So, she didn't want her feelings to be hurt.
Right. No, that's true.
Also, Kaya was that girl. She was that bender, okay?
Yes.
She was that female dog.
Stop. Malia. Stop it.
Yes, we know Malia. We know.
We know
what you wanted to say.
Wait.
I couldn't say it.
You can say it.
Quick clarification, because I saw this somewhere in the fandom, and I don't know where they got it from. But Katara did not tell Korra that she had to keep family her being bi, a family, keep it to herself. That was her father that said that.
I don't remember reading that in the comics though, but it could be a fan thing. I don't know.
It might be a fan thing, but yeah. Also, cute little fandom that I saw, and it was so cute that Kaya and Bumi were really close because Aang was not around during their childhood.
Aang was a terrible father. But
that was a shock when I first saw that.
Yeah.
That's a topic.
I was like, huh? And I still have to read up on that, but I was like, what? Wait, hold on, Aang?
Right?
Is a bad father? What?
You have to keep in mind, Tenzin was the only other airbender had to install all that into him, which I understand, but I don't like. But going back to the point really quickly, the little cute fandom I saw was that Kaya first came out to Bumi and was like, I'm gay, yada yada yada, and then her and Lynn was her first kiss, so you had a little thing going on. Cause I got such a gay vibes from Lynn.
Same.
Yeah, Lynn. Lynn Bayfong
100%.
Yeah.
When I found out she was with Tenzin, I was like, are we sure?
I don't know, actually. I mean, I know that if you remember from the show that Lynn and Tenzin were dating, and then
right. But I'm sitting here are you sure about that?
Sue, my bad.
Sue.
I got
Sue Yin.
I get more lesbian vibes from I forgot
Lynn.
the name already.
Yeah,
Lynn. I get more from Lynn than Sue.
Yeah,
I mean, at least
I get it from both. I take it back. I'm thinking about the characters from both of them.
I mean,
Lynn is gay. Sue is bi.
I mean, maybe sure. I mean, maybe at some point, maybe she was, and then eventually, she was able to find, her soon-to-be husband, and then they had their children together and all that kind of stuff. Maybe, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, so basically, from what I understand, I mean, I know that they go more into the relationship of Asami and with Korra in the comics, but as for the series,
didn't, because I don't have money to go pay for these books, and I don't want to read the hard copies.
Yeah, so basically, you have Kaya, Bumi, and Tenzin, and Bumi is the only non-bender of the family, and
right.
He's like this general, and, he comes up with these really wacky ideas. He's kind of like the jokester. He definitely reminds me a lot of Sokka in that kind of stuff.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Girl, no, that
he
is
took after
Sokka's
Sokka.
nephew.
Yeah.
Right, that is Sokka's nephew for sure.
And obviously we see why Aang and Katara named him Bumi,
Yeah.
Obviously.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and he was the oldest, right?
Kaya.
Yes, he was the oldest.
Bumi's the oldest.
Yeah, Bumi's the oldest, then Kaya, then Tenzin.
Where did his name come from? That's the only name I couldn't place.
Kaya?
Yeah, that's
okay.
Kaya's Katara's mom. Because when I'm thinking about it, the first name that came to my mind for an Airbender child was Gyasu.
Yeah, and that is one complaint people had. Well, how come Aang didn't name him Mungiatsu? Well, that's probably too painful for him,
That's true.
I don't want
It's true, but also think about Katara naming Kaya.
Yeah, like for example, Tenzin is a very common name for like a Buddhist. That's currently, that's Tenzin Gyatso. That's the name of the 14th Dalai Lama.
Right.
So
really?
Yeah.
That's his name.
Yeah.
So it's like if we have
Okay,
Monk
noted.
Gyatso, as the last name, and then we have Tenzin. So it's like we're connecting it to Hinduism. So basically both Tenzin and Monk Gyatso were named after the Dalai Lama.
Right.
Interesting. Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
So anyway, so going into the story about the three of them. So I think it's really interesting when going into book 2 about like, how Tenzin has this, kind of like, he has this assumption that they had the perfect family. It was like him, his mom, his dad, and his brother and sister. But, his brother and sister were like really angry at Aang because, they weren't treated very well. I mean, essentially, because
and we saw it in the show.
Yeah, we saw it in the show. Like, Kaya, was forced to stay in the Southern Water Tribe to take care of Katara after Aang died. And, she, was basically like a person who like lived her life free. And then she was like, felt like she was constrained. And Bumi was the only non-bender. So he felt like, he had to compensate a lot so he could make his dad proud, but, he never could.
Right.
And that's kind of pretty sad if you think about it. It's like, Aang was a great character in a lot of aspects, but the one thing that I would have never expected was him being a terrible father. And
Right.
Yeah.
Him being a bad father and Katara letting it like go on like that.
Right.
I think that was the biggest problem I had with the show was like, first of all, Aang was a person who like would treat everyone equally no matter what. Right? And if that was Avatar Aang. And for some reason, me finding out that him treating all of his children differently because they weren't airbenders really did not sit right with me. And also, Katara, who is like, even from the jump, she was the mother of the group as a whole. Like, she was the one taking care of all of them. So me thinking about her seeing the mistreatment of Bumi and Kaya and just letting it happen, that messed me up. I was like, that's the one thing about the show that I cannot stand.
Sure.
How they do that.
I think with Katara though, just real quick, Malia, I promise this will be quick. With Katara, I think what it is with her allowing it to happen is how important this is to Aang to make sure Tenzin gets the proper airbending training, because this is Aang sees like, okay, I'm not the last airbender anymore. I have an opportunity to continue or to bring back the air nomads, so, and that's not an excuse as to why he was a bad father to the other two kids, but I think Katara knew the importance that was to Aang. So it was like, okay, as a mom, what do I do? I want to make sure that my husband is happy, but I do have these two kids who are being neglected.
Yeah.
So.
For Ian's basically said my point, but I wonder what life was like before Tenzin. What was he like as a father?
That's another thing I want to know.
Like, what do you call it? We know when Kaya came out, Aang was overjoyed. He was just like, bet, cool, you're gay. Bet, I support it. So, like, we know he was supportive of his children. We know that much. But, actually.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to find out about, what happened. Another thing that, there's a lot of questions in Korra that a lot of people are still wondering about, like, many years later, like how we were questioning about, like, what happened to Zuko's mom and all that kind of stuff. Another, a whole bunch of questions rise from it, and I hope that it gets resolved in the comics.
With Zuko's mom, it does, right?
Yeah, it does. I'm talking about for Korra. One of the questions one of the major questions that I see for fans about what they want to know about from Korra is, who are Lin and Suyin's fathers?
It's not Sokka.
Yes.
It's not Sokka.
Yes.
It's not Sokka.
Sue's father is Sokka.
Abandon them.
Sue's father is Sokka. Sokka died.
Yeah, Sokka died.
But but beforehand, before his death, they were like, "Oh, your father was really never around," like yada yada yada.
Okay, can I give a theory? Can I give a theory?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't know about Lin.
Well, according to season 4, Toph said that Lin's father's name was Kanto.
Right. So we know Lin's father is not Sokka.
Right.
But I think that Sue's father is Sokka. And here's my theory, right?
Okay.
So Toph is Toph, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what like throughout the Last Airbender, we see that she kind of has these
I don't know. It's a
fledgling
big
like.
fact. It's a big fat crush on Sokka she has.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was just trying to make it as yeah, she has a crush on Sokka, right? And we see that in the show. My theory is that Sokka and Toph got together and Toph got pregnant, right? If anything, I think Toph made Sokka leave,
Yes.
and there's
Yes.
nothing like how you gonna tell Toph no? How you
No,
can't?
I do agree with you, and I was going to get there, Andrew, and I'm glad you brought it because just because people love each other doesn't mean that they necessarily fit, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Sure.
So
Exactly.
I think how Sokka was or is, and how Toph was or is, they might have had feelings for each other, but it might not have been a good fit for them, just
Right.
because of how they are. And like just knowing Toph, she's like, well, Sokka, if this is how you feel, you can leave. And Sokka's like, well, I'm not gonna change Toph's mind. I guess I will leave.
Or like
Yeah, which
I'm
kind of makes it
thinking-
which also kind of makes it interesting, considering that if you look at the flashbacks from Korra, they interacted with each other a lot because Sokka was the councilman for Republic City, and Toph was the one who founded the Republic City Police Force.
Right.
Yeah, I think that I don't think that Sokka was the issue. I think legitimately it was Toph being like, we work too close together, or some other factor that caused her to be like, I don't want you to really be in this child's life like that. I think wholeheartedly it was an issue with Toph and not Sokka.
Right.
That's just always been my thing. And at first I thought it didn't make sense because like, oh, Sokka had Suki, but then I read up and like Suki died really young.
Mm-hmm.
So
wasn't that fan made?
because one of the creators I believe did say it. I don't think it's fan made anymore. I feel like it's a canon thing, but I could be wrong. I don't know. But
Yeah, I heard that. I
believe Sokka is Suyin's father, and that's that on that. And maybe he could have been in Sue's life, but like a I don't know if anyone has watched Arrow. Like back when Ollie first found out he had a kid, and he was there, but the kid didn't know that was his father.
Oh,
it could be a similar type of situation where like Sokka was there, and he was just always like Uncle Sokka, but like Uncle Sokka is your father,
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Metal Gear Solid.
Okay, Patricia.
Yeah.
Gaming references go crazy.
Go ahead.
Okay, with Metal Gear Solid, you have a character named Meryl Silverberg, and she believed that the colonel of the game, Roy Campbell, was her uncle. But then it's revealed that no, it's not her uncle, it's her father, and she didn't even know it until like way later in the game, until Metal Gear Solid 4, I think. And she still kind of had resentment for him until eventually, she got married over to Johnny, and then they made amends. And then I think another situation it kind of reminds me a little bit of is Watchmen, in which how...
Oh, wait, the show or the movie? The show or the movie?
Yes. And so basically...
Wait, I haven't watched the show yet.
I was like...
I haven't watched the show.
Okay. So... the comics or the movie, and one of those. I haven't seen the show. Anyway,
okay.
I should watch it, by the way. It's a really good show.
Yeah, whenever I get HBO Max, I'm watching it. Continue.
Okay, so yeah, basically, with Watchmen, it's kind of like a similar situation with Metal Gear Solid, in which it's like, I don't know who my father is, when it came to like the discussion of what was her name? Silk Spectra, that's what it was. Yeah, so Silk Spectra didn't know who her father was. I mean, she knew that she had a stepfather because her mother was like the original Silk Spectra, and she was around with a whole bunch of other men and that kind of stuff. And so then it was like revealed like toward the end of the movie that the comedian was her father.
Yeah, but how they
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's in the comics, but I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, it's kind of like an interesting point about like, you know, fan theory. Maybe Sokka was in Suyin's life, but maybe, you know, he died young because, I mean, let's be honest. When we get to Korra, it's 70 years later. The only people who are alive in Korra are Katara,
Toph, and Zuko.
Toph and Zuko. That's it. Everybody else is dead.
You guys know that dragon that Zuko rides?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You remember the episode where Aang and Zuko go to like the to the Fire Masters and the dragons, and they see an
To the
egg?
Sun Warriors. Yeah.
The
You think
egg
that's
is
the
that
dragon,
dragon that Zuko rides.
Oh, the little egg thing that they moved, and then everything went. Oh.
Yeah.
Little Game of Thrones.
Smart.
Fun little facts.
You're smart. You're smart.
Also, can we talk about how Katara and Toph were like, yeah, I'm gonna leave it to this new generation, basically. While Zuko was like,
Right,
I don't know about that action still.
Zuko was the only.
My God,
Zuko was the only one to fight in that show.
It was good to see Zuko.
Toph was just kind of like, I don't want to get involved. This is y'all's fight now. Katara stayed in the South Pole for the whole show. Zuko, as soon as something popped off, he was like, honor!
Yeah,
I hate you.
And see, Legend of Korra should have did what the sequel should have did. Just, I'm not gonna get into that. Anyways,
I think having the characters in there was because they weren't an overbearing presence.
No, they weren't.
They were just like in one or two episodes. Toph was the one with the longest screen time, and I think she was only there for like 3 episodes.
Yeah, and I remember that really disappointed the fans. I remember that I saw this one picture like that was revealed in San Diego Comic-Con that they gave
old friends.
Yeah, the old friends and the new friends. Yes,
that did hype me up. I was like, "Oh, snap! We want to see more of the old gang."
Yeah, I would have liked to see them grown up. Again.
Yeah, that's exactly what everybody said. They said this is what Korra should have been. You know, it's like, hey, let's get focused more on the old cast with the new cast. But again, that's not what the show is about.
Exactly. Yeah.
Especially like, let's think about because you have if you wanted to have like the old cast and the new cast interact, first of all, already impossible because in order for the new cast to interact with the old cast, at least one member of the old cast has to be dead, and that's Avatar. Right. Yeah. And everyone has their own, like, everyone wants their sequel, everyone wants a continuation of something else. Having an entirely new cast of characters is a good idea. Like, everyone wants to see things like brought back, like the old team back together and blah, blah, blah. No, we had that with our comics continuation. Now, do I want a grown-up version of Team Avatar? Yes, absolutely. Not forcing the old team into Korra was a good move by Nickelodeon. They only had them in like a guest role. Zuko was in like an episode or two. Katara appeared in an episode or two. Not having Toph fight in that battle with Kuvira, I think was really smart.
Yeah.
Because like this is a new team, and everyone in the show seems to believe, like, except for Zuko. Zuko was just like, let's fight. But having them just like step back, and having everyone step back and let this new team take over really showed, like, even the creators, like, passing the baton on to this new team.
Right. Now, I'm not gonna lie.
Let's not focus on the old ones.
That could have worked either way with Toph fighting. I just forgot.
Kuvira.
Yeah, Kuvira, because that would have been interesting to me because I'm the one. Well, besides her and Boomy, like, we're the two that really kind of founded metal bending. Let's see what you got. You know, that would have been interesting to see, but for story purposes,
that's right.
it would have taken away, I think, from Korra and Kuvira's struggle. You know?
Yeah, because that was the whole point. The whole point of season 4 was that, you know, Kuvira basically helped, you know, the nation out when Korra was recovering from her fight with Zahir. It took her 4 years to recover. You know, she was going around in underground fights trying to find herself. She still had some little poison into her body. She went over, you know, to the swamp so that she can be able to find Toph and that she can be able to, you know, connect over to her to her avatar state again. So, that was the whole point. It was the point of the struggle between, is the avatar even needed anymore?
Right.
So, the fact that Kuvira was able to showcase that, hey, we don't need the avatar anymore. We can fend for ourselves and all that kind of stuff. Well, at the same time, kind of like manipulating people, saying, we need to, work for this. We need to, collect food for this. We need to, obey this and obey that and all that kind of stuff. It's actually like, once again, going into like, how Aman kind of like did it, in which like, I'm going to convince people about this and this is right. And we don't need, this anymore. The age of the benders is over and all that kind of stuff. It's like with Kuvira saying like, the age of the avatar is over. We can fend for ourselves. So, again, going into the more of the political thing, in which like, this is what it is like, even with like in season 2, in which like, you have Varric, who is like creating these movies that is part serial, part war propaganda, saying, hey, go into our side, this side is evil, this side is good, believe us, or something like that. So yeah, I mean, like, and also, shout outs to Zelda Williams, the daughter of Robin Williams, who provided the voice of Kuvira, because she did a fantastic job.
Oh, I didn't know that was
She did
her.
a phenomenal job.
I didn't know that was her.
I
Literally,
love these little facts.
Legend of Korra has so many big name actors for no reason. Serena Williams was in Avatar and Korra. I don't know who she played in Korra.
Mm-hmm.
J.K. Simmons voiced Tenzin.
Yeah. J.K. Simmons as Tenzin. You have Mindy Sterling as Lynn. Janet Varney as Korra. You have
Allison Stoner as what's that girl's name? Opal.
Yeah.
They just have all these random like names, and I'm looking through the cast list, and I'm like, did they blackmail these people?
Well, not really. I mean, like, to be fair,
it's such a random assortment.
Well, to be fair, Avatar also had its, cast of characters. You had, Jack DeSena as Sokka, Mae Whitman as Katara, Mark Hamill is Avatar.
That was my I forgot. One of the voice actors that was in Avatar Last Airbender, I think it was Azula or something like that.
Yeah.
Voiced one of the people in the girl with the no arms.
Yeah, that's her.
In Legend of Korra.
Yeah, that's great Delilah
If you
Griffin.
if you listen to it carefully, same voice actor. Like when I was watching it, I think the second time I finally picked up on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a lot of returning voice actors. Zuko came back to voice General Iroh.
Yeah. Yep. And also, Jessie Flower, the voice of Toph, came back to voice as I think it was either Young Lin or Young Suyin. I think that was what it was.
Right.
One of those.
Yeah.
And I think, just on a side note, I think it's cool that they named the character Mako after the actor Mako, who played Iroh.
Yes.
And he is voiced by David Faustino. Like, I never expected to see David Faustino in a voiceover role. Like, this is the same guy who played as Bud in Married with Children.
Yeah.
Like, they just brought all these actors and was like, hey, we want you to be in our Avatar show. People you never saw coming. And they're just like, oh, yeah, okay, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, like, for the most part, a lot of the people that they brought in had never seen Avatar.
I believe that.
That's true. Okay, so going back to the whole old gang, I'm happy that Toph said, yeah, no, this isn't our fight anymore. This is up to you. You didn't see Katara getting that mess with the Civil War. She set her butt down. She said, I'm out.
She said, this is not my problem.
What else did we talk about? I forgot my other points.
We were talking about Kuvira, and we were talking
about...
okay.
Yeah. So, with Kuvira, what I liked about her is basically, she was an adopted daughter of Sue. Yeah. Right? If you remember. Mm-hmm. I like the fact that she was like, yeah, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I'm going to kidnap you and your family. Well, no, did she kidnap Sue?
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
She wasn't
and she was, and she had Su Yin's son as her fiance. And
that's right. That's right.
She said I'm going to murder you. I promise that redemption arc was clean.
Yeah, I mean, you got a point there.
So,
is it cleaner than
real
Zuko's?
quick, Patricia, real quick.
Yeah.
You know a lot of the backstory. Okay. As far as like cohesiveness and things of that nature, this series had a lot of trouble behind the scenes.
Oh, so many. I can tell you so many stories about what happened. It's this like I said, production was a mess from the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, so we already established like the 2 seasons. Okay, seasons 3 and 4. So the creators were essentially animating 3 seasons all at once. They were still animating, Studio Mir was the original studio. Season 2, they weren't available because they were doing the Boondocks. So they were like, okay, we're going to call Studio Period. And Studio Period is also the same animation studio who worked in a lot of anime such as Naruto and Naruto Shippuden. And then, essentially, Studio Mir came back toward in the middle of season 2. So there's a little bit of inconsistencies with the art. And around the same time, the animators were still working on some episodes of season 2, some episodes of season 3, some episodes of season 4, all at the same time. And then there's also the fact that, as mentioned in the last podcast, where they were cutting down episodes and they were going to show some of it exclusively online and never show it on TV until much later on. And then there's also the filler episode, which I told you guys about, in which they couldn't pay their people anymore because they were running over budget and they wanted to fire a lot of their animators. And Nickelodeon was really close to letting people go because of that. And then Mike and Brian had to beg them to say, please, if we just do this one quick clip show episode where we just use old footage that we already use, can you please keep our workers? And they're like, sure, whatever, we don't care anymore, we're already putting your stuff online so that nobody can watch it and we're not even going to tell anybody about where you can watch it at. Who cares? So yeah, oh god, the production of this show is a mess. Nickelodeon clearly didn't care anymore after season 4. They just posted most of the stuff online, didn't show it on TV until much later on. And they moved on past that point. They're already focusing on more SpongeBob episodes, and then the Loud House started becoming really popular.
I love the Loud House. They have a gay character or bi character. I can't remember.
There's two. There's the parents.
Father.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's also one of the sisters.
Luna.
Yeah, Luna.
Luna Loud. Clyde's father.
I wouldn't know.
There's an interracial couple with a black kid, a black dad, and a white dad. When I tell you that show was progressive.
I've never heard of this in my life.
Yeah, I've never heard of it either, but
it's because I have little cousins that I watch these shows. Craig of the Creek, beautiful. That's basically.
I've heard good things about that show. I've heard very good things about Craig of the Creek.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the characters in the show are a part of the LGBT community. And for Craig of the Creek, I really watched a lot of cartoon shows.
I can see that.
Anyway, but yeah, so that's the basic. I mean, there's a lot more to the behind the scenes stories of Korra, but that's just the gist. That's pretty much what I'm just going to say about it.
Yeah, and it wasn't treated as well as Last Airbender was.
No, not even close. Not even close.
Yeah,
I mean, you have to understand that this was their. I mean, this was this. The third president of Nickelodeon, Herb Scannell. This was his, one of the last years that he was working on Nickelodeon as the president, right before he stepped down, and then SEMA took over. And basically, Nickelodeon was still going through the whole Nicktoons death treatment, in which, hey, your show's not doing well, we're going to move it to the Nicktoons network and never reveal it to anybody.
Right.
I mean, they still do this, by the way. They did it for Rise of Ninja Turtles.
Did that show not do well?
Nope.
Because,
no, it didn't.
I figured that kids would have liked it. And, obviously adults would have been tired of it. But I figured some kids would have watched it.
Yeah. I mean, it means no exception. I mean, Nickelodeon just has such a huge scale that you have to hit if you want to be able to become successful. If it doesn't hit the SpongeBob scale, you're pretty much dead. You don't get a third season. It's goodbye. So, I mean,
Viacom's dropping the ball.
Yeah, I guess this is why they lost a lot of money and then they merged with CBS.
Yep.
They have to do it. That's tragic.
Yeah,
they just don't get it. They really don't get it.
They don't really care anymore at this point. So, yeah, I mean, so now I think this is probably going to be a major reason why we will never see another animated incarnation of Avatar ever again.
Which makes me sad.
Yeah.
So sad.
Because if Mike and Brian would have gotten better treatment with doing Korra as opposed to keeping the mindset about like, okay, we're gonna move the schedule around, we're going to give you this amount of episodes, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. If they would have gotten the same creative freedom that they got the first time, then I'm sure that they would have stuck around. I mean, I have a theory. I have a theory that, how, there's some cases in which, like, they started doing, like, the TV movies, like, with Rocko's Modern Life, Static Cling, and Invaders Invented the Florpus, and the Jungle movie, and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I have a really strong feeling that if we only gotten that season of Legend of Korra, and then the movie would have came out, I think that the franchise would have continued going. I think that all the stories that we have gotten from, Avatar: The Last Airbender, continuing on with, the story of, when Toph starts off the earth bending and metal bending school, and with Aang and Zuko meeting up so that they can be able to, unite the nations together and all that kind of stuff. I think that we would have seen a lot more TV movies based off of Avatar, kind of like how we saw a ton of TV movies and specials for the Fairly Odd Parents. And
right, I agree.
And if, maybe at some point, hey, let's see if we can do Korra some more. And I think that, it would have been like another franchise, kind of like how Rugrats and SpongeBob are, in which, like, we've gotten so many specials, we've gotten so many movies, we're going to continue on with this. And maybe we could have gotten, the third incarnation of Avatar: The Last Airbender. I mean, Avatar, in which, like, we have the male earthbender, and, it's going to take place in this year or whatever that it takes place in.
I agree. Because when you see how successful Nick's shows were in the from the early 90s to the mid 2000s, you see the kind of treatment that they were given. They have time to flesh out their stories, flesh out characters, whether it be Rugrats, Rocko's Modern Life, Wild Thornberrys, those type of shows. I mean, the way that the comics are set up, you could tell the way they wrote those comics that these should have been either TV movies or like a movie that would have been released in theaters. Can you imagine, even after the disaster that was The Last Airbender, if they were able to release an animated Avatar: Last Airbender movie?
Yeah, like, what was the last time that we had an animated movie based off of? I mean, not counting SpongeBob, but I think the last time was like the My Little Pony movie or something, in which, like, you'd have a movie that came, and the Teen Titans Go to the Movies, but that's beside the point.
Right. So it's like you would have had that. So you would have had TV movies. And like even Dante Bosco, he read some lines from the Search, what do you call, comic book. And he's like, yeah, Nickelodeon, let's do this. And I'm like, yeah, no, we're not going to do it. I'm just like, why?
From what I can gather, they don't do well, like, with their popular shows. Once they have reached what the studio considers to be the end, they'll just kind of cut
Which
it.
I hate.
I hate it, because you got, like, okay, I'm going into live action here, but you have, like, a show like Victorious, which was a gem of a TV show. I don't care what anyone says. And they just kind of ended it out of nowhere. And, like, you got Zoe 101 ending it without any closure. They don't end their shows with closure.
To be fair, I can understand why Zoe 101 ended, because that was when Jamie Lynn Spears was pregnant.
Right.
Oh,
but
that's right.
At the same time...
No, that's rumor.
That
she wasn't pregnant.
Jamie Lynn Spears says it's a rumor. Everyone else says it's factual. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know which one to believe, because Jamie Lynn, she's an actual person, but she also hasn't given a reason as to why the show was canceled to begin with.
Sure.
And it was immensely popular.
I read somewhere for Zoe 101 that she wanted to go back to school. She got tired of it.
Okay, I can see that.
I mean, yeah.
That's why the Naked Brothers band didn't last for, that's why that show ended as well.
Bro, nobody remembers that show, and it was one of my favorite shows.
I remember it existing, but I've never seen an episode.
It was alright to me. To me, it was alright.
I've never seen an episode of that
that's
show.
the exact reason why the show ended, was because the boys wanted to go back to school, and Nickelodeon was like, okay, well, if you want to go back to school, then, your show's canceled. And, oh, by the way, we have the trademark for the Naked Brothers band, so you can never use that name again.
Yeah, and see, that's and that's the key. And I think now, Patricia, like, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong. What can the creators of Avatar do with the actual franchise? Because I know Netflix has a deal with Viacom, but does Viacom actually own the rights to anything Last Airbender or anything in the world of Avatar?
I mean, for the most part, yeah. I mean, if it's like with Craig, for example, Craig Bartlett, the creator of Hey Arnold. If he wanted to do the Jungle movie, he couldn't just do it by himself because they still own the rights to it. So, I mean, but here's the thing, like, you know, they still are doing the comics. So Dark Horse is still helping them, you know, with, you know, continuing their storylines, which, you know, it's fair enough because, you know, they have the creative freedom to do whatever story they want. But, you know, with the exclusivity deal with Netflix and maybe with CBS Access and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, they are doing, if you remember, that Nickelodeon is planning on doing a lot of exclusive stuff on Netflix specifically. So I'm sure if Mike and Brian are able to lick the wounds off of the distrust that the network did to them, then maybe they could release some exclusive stuff on Netflix. But that's going to be really hard because, I mean, even when Korra was out, a lot of the crucial people who worked on that show left to do other projects. Joaquim Dos Santos worked on season 1 of Legend of Korra, and then he left to do Voltron.
Yes.
Better choice. Better choice, because Voltron is awesome. Anyway.
Yes.
And then, of course, you know, a major person that, you know, a lot of people felt was deeply missed was Aaron Ehasz. Aaron Ehasz wrote some of the best episodes of Avatar: The Last
Airbender. Right.
He never worked on the show because he was doing the Dragon.
The Dragon Prince, right? Yep.
Which is a great show.
I'm so behind. I need to finish.
Yeah, I actually need to watch it. So I watched the first 2 episodes and I liked them, but I was like, all right, it kind of needs to pick up a little bit from here on out. But I heard that it
picks
does.
up. Trust.
It picks up.
Wait,
I'm just behind.
Can we do What About Dragon Prince? Because I was gonna go into a whole tangent just now. But I was like, we don't have the time.
Yeah, I haven't watched it. I mean, if you guys are like waiting for me, that's cool. But if you guys want to do it, that's fine. I'll just
now, if we want to do another episode, we should do a Voltron episode. But that's just me talking.
We have to do She-Ra, Kipo, Steven Universe, Harley Quinn.
I'll do She-Ra and Harley Quinn. I'm Steven Universe. I don't know. Wait, is Steven Universe the one where they had Sonic and Tails show up in like one of the episodes?
No, that's that was, OKKO.
Yeah, that one.
How was that show? Is it decent?
There is a lesbian person in the show, and that's
okay. But is the show good, Malia? Is it a good show? I'm sorry. A lesbian cannot be the main reason for the show. We love you so much, Malia.
I mean, like, just because, I mean, you know, yeah, exactly. Just because a person or a group of people, you know, represents LGBT doesn't mean it's good. Alan Gregory.
I know. I haven't watched. I'm saying that's the only reason why I'm going to watch it. But from what I saw, it's not that great. But it can't. Maybe you'll pick up. Maybe.
Isn't it canceled now?
Yeah,
it's an old show.
Yeah, it ended, I think, last year or 2 years ago. I think.
Yeah, it's the only reason I knew about it was because they were doing a crossover with Sonic and Tails. That was the only reason.
Sonic and Tails couldn't save it. Oh man!
And Captain
Planet.
Planet.
Tails can't save themselves.
Captain Planet was on there.
Yes.
What the heck?
What?
Yo, what?
What kind of show was this?
We need to do a podcast on Captain Planet. That is one of the most interesting shows of all time.
Noted.
I have to go and watch it, so just give me time.
Okay,
that and Gargoyles. We need to do
Gargoyles. Absolutely.
I'm watching that right now. I'm like, oh, Disney is stupid. Why aren't they doing more with this franchise?
Oh, you want to talk about a franchise that was screwed over? I can go on a tangent about what they did with Gargoyles. But,
are you serious?
I'm serious.
Oh,
that's another episode. That's an episode for sure.
Okay. Malia, you have to watch Gargoyles if you haven't watched it. Patricia, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it because
I mean, in the last episode, you guys went on a tangent for 10 minutes, giving me suggestions. So it's like, let me go through the list first, please.
Wait, hold on. What's the next show that we're doing?
Well, Gargoyles, I mean, I think
I'm joking.
I think that the next show we're doing is let's see. From what so it's a lot. Like we have Steven Universe, She-Ra, Kipo, Owl House, the Tron series.
Tron! I love Tron.
We're going to talk about the Pixar and DreamWorks movies, Dragon Prince, Voltron. Too much. Anyway, but yes.
Too much.
Anyway, but yeah, like we have a lot to talk about, but yeah, I guess we have to wrap things up, because if not, then we'll be here forever. But as I mentioned before in the last podcast, in which, like, you know, Avatar has gotten a major resurgence ever since the show came back on Netflix. And a lot of people, when rewatching Korra again, some of them have warmed up to it. Others have said, yeah, this is just as, you know, disappointing as it was the first time I saw it 8 years ago.
Oh,
so,
good Lord.
So I understand that for some people, they're going to be really mixed with it. I just want to put this into context that you need to get your mindset saying, this is not the same show as the original. I know the original had a high standard. I mean, like when it came to like the quality and the tight writing and the characters and all that kind of stuff that Nickelodeon shows have ever done, it's probably the best one they've ever done.
Not probably. I believe it is.
I mean, it is a show that will still be remembered like many years from now. Like, there's a reason why when it came out on Netflix, a new generation of kids are now tuning into it. Like a person, I mean, did you hear about the one, the news report on IGN about the 17-year-old who had never seen Avatar: The Last Airbender was so in love with the series that they decided to make a full-on musical of the show. Like,
wow.
That is, yeah, amazing. So,
wow.
So they're pulling a Harry Potter, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I mean, I know y'all probably like, Ian, enough with the Star Wars, but you see why George Lucas gravitated towards that show. You know, it's this type of storytelling that's in his realm of like, okay, kids beating the impossible odds. You know, so it's one of those shows that are gonna stick. And I think for Korra, I am happy to see more people starting to warm up to it.
Yeah,
like how people are starting to warm up to the Star Wars prequels now.
I think that you have to give it time. I think that I think that when the show came out, a lot of people were still kind of on the mindset that it's going to be the same as Avatar. But I think that once everything cooled down and once the hype started to like diminish, so now people are seeing it for what it is, and knowing that, you know, the show didn't exactly have a great time when it came to production. So now I think that with everything that's been going on nowadays, I mean, I think I remember seeing like context of like, oh, you know, Korra, you know, it works better now than it did in 2012 because, you know, everything that's going on in our nation, you know, with like the whole Black Lives Matter and Make America Great Again and all that kind of stuff.
That's
it's
fair.
Like,
that's
you know,
fair. It might have been ahead of its time. That might be the case.
It might have been.
Yeah. And maybe it's kind of like a case in which, like, you know, it's a show that just needed some time to appreciate. It's kind of like I was doing for my podcast series, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, you know, the 2005 version with Johnny Depp.
Oh, with Tim Burton. Oh.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah. And a lot of people were comparing it to the 1971 version, the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with Gene Wilder. And a lot of people say that the 2005 version is nowhere near as good as the 1971 version. Well, a lot of people...
It's not the same director as the other guy.
It's because I watched both of them, and I want you to understand, I was shooketh when that kid ate the mic.
I think I remember you sharing that to me on the group me. It's like, yeah, he ate the mic.
I was shook. I was like, did he just put the mic in his mouth? What is going on?
Yeah, I mean,
what the heck?
Tim, you kind of have to have a certain flavor for Tim Burton. I mean, I know this is kind of off topic, but once you can appreciate his vision for things, you can enjoy his movies more. Yeah. You know, he's an acquired taste for people.
Yeah, but the point of the matter, or what I was trying to bring up, is that when the movie came out, you know, many people were like, oh, but it's not like the original version. You know, Johnny Depp is not Gene Wilder, you know, that kind of stuff. But now I think more people have warmed up to it now. But I think that with Korra, I think that, you know, if you had high expectations, you know, going in from Avatar after you watched it or even rewatched it and then go straight into Korra, you're going to understand that it pulls a lot of punches. I mean, it takes a lot more risks. It's a lot darker. It's a lot more serious. It's a lot more risk-taking. It goes into things that the original never did. And I think that kind of threw people off. It's like, you know, what happened to the balance between the fun and the serious? And, you know, the world building isn't as good. And, you know, people say that because, oh, you know, they're stuck in Republic City the most of the time. What about in the old show in which, like, the Avatar would travel to place? But the whole
We've seen the other nations. We've seen the other nations.
And here's the thing. The whole point of, the reason why Korra was stuck in Republic City was because if you remember from season 2, that she was, basically stuck in the Southern Water Tribe because she was being watched over by the White Lotus. And she thought that, oh, I'm doing this because, Aang told me that I needed to be protected, when in reality, that's not true.
Right.
Korra's family was protecting her, so she didn't really get to experience the entire world. And with her noticing the entire world for the first time and seeing all the problems that a person had to go through, she cracked under pressure. That was the point. So... And
he was a gifted homeschooled kid.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep. That's it.
And I understand that a lot of people were kind of like let down, saying like, I expected better, which, okay, you're right. We all expected better. But once we know about the production issues and all that kind of stuff, it puts you into perspective that, hey, the creators wanted to do something well too. It's just that they had to work with the fact that they only were going to get one season. Then they had to rush season 2. And then when they were working on all the episodes all at once, then Nickelodeon was like, yeah, we're just going to put your stuff online because we don't care anymore. So yeah, like, let's be honest. I mean, the production is pretty messy. It's probably one of the messiest that I've ever experienced when it came to like, this is what happened behind the scenes. And this is why the show didn't turn out as well as they wanted to. So the stuff that they were able to pull off that was really good is a miracle. Like, some of the episodes are so heartbreaking. Some of them are so tragic, and some of them are just so beautiful that, I can appreciate that they were able to pull it off as well as they did. The music is just as good as ever. The bending is just as good as ever. The way that they were able to utilize the technology is really clever and amazing. Some of the characters are amazing. So I say, for people who had high hopes, they were disappointed when it first came out in 2012, give it another chance. Like, I would suggest that maybe a second viewing of the show and knowing about all that kind of stuff, it makes the show more better to watch. And it's still great. I mean, it's still definitely right up there with some of the best that, Nickelodeon had ever put out. So
yes, especially during that time.
Yes, 100%.
It was that, when it came to the 2010s decade, you had this, Ninja Turtles, Harvey Beaks, and The Loud House. That's it.
What is Harvey Beaks?
Yeah,
Harvey
the name it shows.
Yeah, Harvey Beaks, it was created by C.H. Greenblatt, who also worked on various other shows like SpongeBob. It's about a kid named Harvey, and he has 2 friends, and they have their adventures outside in the woods. It's actually a really good, wholesome show. It's just a shame that, once again, behind-the-scenes issues, and Nickelodeon canceled the show, and Z.H. Greenblatt didn't know that they ended the show until he saw it on Tumblr.
Wow.
And then he
Wait, Malia with the ramen.
And then he ranted about it on Tumblr, and then he had to publicly apologize for that.
I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done that. I said, Viacom, screw you guys. Cartoon Network or Disney, and what know.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Like, when Invader Zim Enter the Florpus was announced, C.H. Greenblatt then said, oh, by the way, my show was canceled, and I didn't even know about it. And then he went on a long rant. And Nickelodeon was like, you better apologize for what you just did, man. Like,
excuse me, you better apologize for canceling my show without telling me.
I know, right?
Like, you guys don't even have the decency to tell me that you're canceling my show.
Right.
I had to find out on social media.
Right. On Tumblr.
Like, bro, my fans had to tell me it was canceled. My fans.
That's terrible.
I know, but yeah.
Disrespectful that is?
Yeah,
exactly.
It sucks. All right.
Oh.
I know. So yeah, final words. Korra is still a really good show. I mean, I really enjoyed, Legend of Korra for what it is. I mean, I really thought that, the transition for Aang to Korra made so much sense in the long run.
Yes.
I thought that, her struggles were so well done. Like, one of my favorite episodes that I think I even told this to Janet Varney when I interviewed her on the podcast, that when I first saw Korra alone, the 4 years that she had to struggle so that she can be able to become herself again was just so incredibly well done. And it is so tragic to see somebody who was trained to be the Avatar and the Avatar alone, and then just crumbled when basically her entire life that she's been training up for her that she's been trained up for is pretty much just been null and void. It's kind of like if a person was trained to be, let's just say, a photographer in a time in which when people were still using like film, and then when digital camera came along and you were never trained to do that, it's like, oh wow, what do I do now? So it's right. It's like either go with the times or just quit, because You can't do it anymore. It's hard to, imagine that, somebody as powerful as that is like not needed in a society like that. I mean, we even said this in the last podcast that, with Avatar: The Last Airbender, Aang was a peacekeeper in a time in which they needed a hero. And with Korra, she was a hero at a time when they needed a peacekeeper. So right. I thought that was just a really
diplomat,
well done.
I think.
Yes, exactly. I thought that was really well done. And I think that for a lot of people, they kind of had the notion that it was going to be the same thing as Avatar. So I'm glad that they took the risk that they did. So I'm just going to end it right there.
Bro, for every Avatar, they start off with the world does not need. There's a post. Where is it?
She is not playing. Malia is not playing.
Jeez. Oh, I've seen this one.
All right, so each Avatar started exactly as what the world didn't need at the time. Wano was a thief when the world needed a hero. Roku was a friend when the world needed a authority figure. Aang was a meditator when the world needed a warrior. And Korra is a superhero when the world needed a diplomat.
Did you mean a mediator?
Okay. Yeah, mediator.
Yes.
But yeah, you're absolutely right, because for the most part, when it came to, okay, I came into this world and I am one thing, but no, we needed you for another thing. So it's like, yeah, I mean, for the most part, that's how, it was for every single generation. And I guess, unless of course you were a hardcore fan who read through the comics and who, looked at the minute details of all that kind of stuff. I think for the general audience, they didn't really get that when the show came out in 2012.
And this, I don't know, there are just so many gems. Like, okay, both series have a lot of gems that can help people out with life or even just their spiritual walk. Like even with Uncle Iroh, just calling both series how he's so in tune with the spirit world. That's how, whatever you believe, that's how human beings should be with their belief. When you're so in tune to where you can see and understand and comprehend things that others probably won't. How to really figure out who you are during the tough times, during the trials. And that's one thing I really respect about Korra. And again, people, that's not to say Aang didn't go through any trials. He did. He went through a lot of trials. But Korra, I think her trials were more complex than Aang's. It wasn't just good versus evil. Now it's okay, you versus you. You versus a society that doesn't want you anymore. You versus a world that is just different from your previous incarnations and what they had to deal with. So I think at the end of the day, this is a show that was needed. And if it's even needed more so now, then that's great. That's fantastic.
My last and final thoughts about the show. Like I said earlier, in my opinion, it is a greater show than Avatar. I love the storyline. It reminded me so much of anime because of the different arcs, which I loved. I love Patricia for letting us know the background of the background, what's going on behind the scenes. And to me, that made the show even better, of them having to deal with all that stuff and then still coming out with great content.
Right.
I loved how I really loved the political aspect of it, and like Eian was saying earlier about how it was ahead of its time, and how it's really meant, and how story creators can take from their time and make it into a show that's enjoyable. I loved it. I found myself looking into different characters such as Korra and Asami. Again, LGBT representation. So yeah, I really loved it. It's a great show all around, in my opinion.
My final thoughts. I think Korra is a great show, and I think that people who may be new to it, who may just be starting, need to get the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender, like, not the world, but get that out of your mind. Like, this is not Aang's story. This is someone completely different, and make sure you go into it like that, because a lot of people expect an Avatar continuation, and this is a different Avatar. This is a completely different world than Aang knew as a whole. Different characters, different everything. So get out of the mindset of this is an Avatar sequel and get in the mindset of like, yes, this is a world of Avatar, but this is her story, her journey, her world, her enemies. It's her everything. So just, if you go into it expecting Avatar: The Last Airbender Part 2, you're just going to be a grumpy person. But if you go into
You're gonna
it
have great disappointment.
yes. But if you go into it like this is an all new story with an all new cast of characters that is just set in this world, then you're going to have a phenomenal time because the show is great. That's all I got.
All right, well, that's it. So thank you so much for listening, everyone. For those who want to plug and promote your stuff, go for it.
Follow me on Instagram, Jabak, JBIAC, and then Jabak Productions, JBIAC Productions.
Instagram _Andrew JM _ wait, right? Yeah. _Andrew JM _ I forgot my own Instagram name. Yeah.
All right. Instagram EK _ Freedom Fighter and Twitter at _ Rebel. Holla at your boy.
YouTube.com/oldsschoollane, Facebook.com/oldsschoollane. I'm on Twitter at Patty _B _Miranda. I have a lot of podcast places. There's Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Radio Public, Stitcher, all those places. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. And we'll be talking about a topic that's not Avatar related. So whatever it is, I don't know. We'll see. So thank you so much for tuning in. So we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.